Yes, I hope I can give you something of value here, because my approach will be a little different to what you're used to. It's really based on all that I know is my own experience, really. And I'm going to focus on the nature of Buddha mind, or Buddha nature, if you like. And is it possible for us to get close to it in this lifetime, even to drop into it now? That's exciting. And I'm going to illustrate it by my own story, which will be brief, and because you've already heard, I think most of it, I'll just sort of summarize it, because it does illustrate one facet which I want to highlight a bit. And the other more interesting story, I think, is this wonderful fellow I found called Mingyur Rinpoche, Yongey Mingyur Rinpoche. He's a Tibetan Buddhist. And he has a delightful face, there he is, look at him. So he's full of radiance and free, and living in the Himalayas. And he wasn't always that way. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about him, but first of all, I'll tell you a bit about my story. So I wonder if we can go, yeah, that's good, yeah. Just briefly, when I was a young doctor, I had a serendipitous encounter with a meditation teacher, which came out of my own anxiety as a young doctor, being overworked, I felt, and a bit stressed, and really feeling, have I made the right choice? A lot of discontent, a lot of suffering, really, that led me to explore some ways to find relief. And I found this psychiatrist in Melbourne, Dr. Ainsley Mears, who was really very interested in the Eastern approaches to meditation. And he took me through a very profound 2-week process of immersion in meditation, which changed my life for the better. And then the part that I haven't told you all, which I will now tell you, is what happened after that was round about maybe 6 years after that. I graduated from medicine, and felt sort of buoyed up enough to consider buying a nice new car, which I bought an Alfa Romeo, which was, way beyond my budget at the time, but it made me feel good. And I was interested in skiing, so off I went to the slopes, and sure enough, I hit some black ice on the way down. And for those of you who know what black ice is, it's not nice. So ice ain't nice. And I did a complete 360, overturned the car, blacked out completely, found myself upside down in a ravine. And when I came to, the car was upside down. I managed to crawl through the window and crawl back up and call for help. I was alive and survived, but I completely lost surface awareness in that time. But an extraordinary thing happened. I can't actually put into words what I experienced in that near-death experience, but there was something profoundly peaceful and life-changing, because I was never the same again. So suddenly everything became relativized. I would walk into the grocery store and just look around and feel somehow detached, but in a good way, from everything. And something had changed. I wasn't able to articulate what was really going on, but that was my first encounter with what I later came to recognize as pure awareness without objects. In other words, nothing else outside, pure consciousness without any reference to thinking, feeling, sensing, just pure peace. And that was the strange part. You'd think I would be anxious and so forth. That's what I thought would happen, but the opposite happened. I felt a profound peacefulness that I couldn't make any sense of. And it's only in later years that I've been able to put words to that experience and start to read about others' experience and realize what actually happened there. That was my first real experience of what we could call Buddha nature, Buddha mind, or pure awareness. And from then on, I was drawn to reading about Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, particularly through Christmas Humphreys and various other teachers. And I was interested in the direct path because, my path was pretty direct with that car accident. And so I was really interested in getting straight to it. And I've been very fortunate in being led to various teachers who've led me to the direct path to understanding, or pure awareness, if you like, or Buddha nature. But the reason I've given you that as a preamble is because of this wonderful man that who is a Rinpoche, of course, Mingyur Rinpoche. And he's written a book called, what is it again, Meredith? In Love with the World, isn't it? Something like that. Yeah. So this is a Tibetan Buddhist who he's very, very simple. He's literally, I mean, look at his face. He's in love with everything, and he radiates that peace and joy of enlightenment, really, of being totally in the moment. And his story is really fascinating to me. I think maybe to you too. So there he is. He grew up in those wonderful mountains in the Himalayas, and as a young boy, his father was actually a meditation teacher, and he was very well known and very well respected in the area. But this little boy was really, really scared of the electrical storms, and they were fierce in the Himalayas. They would be. He talked about the snow being pelting, really sort of penetrating your skin almost horizontally, not like our rain when it's really windy, but this is snow. And it hurt, and the little boy was sort of scared of that. And the lightning was terrifying, and the storms were loud. And so he grew up being very, very anxious. And in fact, he developed panic attacks, full-blown panic attacks, terrified. And he was so scared, and he didn't know what to do. He talked to his mother, who was quite reassuring, but she said to him, well, maybe I'll get your father to teach you meditation. But he was very, very shy of his father because he was such a well-known man. He didn't want to waste his father's time, and he took a couple of years to gather the courage to ask his father to teach him meditation. And so what happened was that his father basically, gave him the experience that I had with Dr. Ainsley Mears, just really helped him to connect with his true nature and let go as much as he could. And he was able, even at a very young age, to touch into something of that. But it came and went, and of course he wasn't mature enough to be grounded in that. So he continued to have panic from time to time, and to be a really fearful young man. So he was trying to explore a way of dealing with this. And so he decided he'd become a Tibetan Buddhist monk, and he entered the monastery and had his full induction into the monastery. And it was a very disciplined monastery, as you can imagine. And he was a very disciplined young monk, and he did everything that was required, but he still had this nagging doubts and sort of subterranean fears, even though he was living and even teaching some sort of peace of mind and so on. He just didn't think all was well. And he was sort of driven to really find out what the truth really is. So what he decided to do was to leave the monastery, to go out on the streets and test that everything he learned had practical application. So he had a minimal amount of money in his pocket, and he went out onto the streets, and they weren't very kind. There were dogs, and there were thieves, and people, weren't very nice. So certain people would come and give him enough food to get by most of the time. But it wasn't very long, within about 6 months, where he was in big trouble because he got a very severe form of gastroenteritis with vomiting and dehydration. And and he lost consciousness, and he was at death's door. And he had a profound sense that he wasn't going to survive this. But at the same time, he had this unbelievable, and to him totally surprising, sense that as everything was dissolving, his body, his sense perceptions, he couldn't see, that blurred vision that just faded to nothing, couldn't hear anything. And as everything dissolved in the objective world, he, like I did, experienced this profound, inexplicable peace of mind. And it really struck him that there's something there that he could only touch in that moment of near death. And so in this experience, he realized that this is something which really related to the letting go of all objective attachment to objective reality and resting as pure presence, pure awareness. And he gradually found the words to be able to explain to people how to understand this direct path of letting go of attachment to the objective reality and resting into the pure subjective essence of nature, Buddha nature. And so that begins with what is known in India as the neti-neti process. In other words, I'm not that, I'm not this. And you know, for example, you might identify with your station in life. You know, I'm a teacher, I'm a whatever I am, and I've got a label, and I've got some ego attachment to that. And that would be something that I would have to let go of, not identify with that, let go of that attachment. Even attachment to a loved one in the sense that this person is going to make me happy or to always be there to support me or something like that, that this is dependency rather than pure relationship from a deeper level of a shared being. So the whole process of recognizing what we project into the outer world, in other words, we label everything. A tree is got a name, and the moment we give it a label, we move just that little bit away from the treeness of the tree or the isness of the tree, because now we've got some sort of objective hook on which to attach all trees, and we miss something of the essence of the Buddha nature, which is also in, for me, not just in sentient beings, but in the whole of life and nature. And so that everything starts to become alive in a way that is just awesome. You know, we feel awe in the presence of everything in the world, everything, not just people, but beauty and truth and wisdom, all the wonderful essential qualities of Buddha nature start to become the only thing that we really want to rest as, pure awareness, pure presence. And how to cultivate that, how to deepen that is really what I want to talk about this evening. So I hope I haven't lost anyone. Everyone knows, you know, what I'm talking about, because Buddhism for me, whichever path, whichever sect that we choose to follow, its ultimate, I think, experience is to be able to find peace and joy and happiness and shared being, so that our care for others just flows from this understanding. And for me, that's the essence of Buddhism. So how do we begin this journey? How do we start to explore the depths of no mind, of unhooking from objective reality, of discovering the simple essence of being? So before I go on and give you any sort of lecture about how to do that, which wouldn't be exactly the direct path, I'd like to hear from anybody who would like to share their experience or questions perhaps around this issue of how do we experience Buddha nature in whatever way that we find our own way to it. What are some of the pathways that you found of value? If you'd like to share, you can unmute yourself, and I'd be very interested to hear what your experience is.
I was just wondering, David, for yourself and Rinpoche, Mingyur, and many others, especially with a near-death experience, you get into this pure awareness state very suddenly, as if, and very quickly. And that's the direct path. But perhaps for the majority of us, including myself, we might have a glimpse of that, a glimpse of the Buddha mind. But even to just get a glimpse or to just touch upon it, we go through a much longer, much more gradual process as we meditate, if you like, deeper and deeper. Would you concur with that view? Or?
I think that's the general view. I don't actually concur with that, and I'll explain why in a moment. But I don't want to sort of reveal all my little secrets all at once, you know. So I'll keep that up my sleeve. But that's a very good, and I think most people would agree with you that it takes a lifetime, and you know that's why I put it, you know, in the question: is it actually attainable in this lifetime, in this moment? And I hopefully will give you a little taste of that shortly. But thank you. That's a very valuable start. Does anybody else like to share? Patricia.
I was thinking, as you just said then, is it attainable in this moment? Maybe that's the key. It is only attainable in this moment. So it's not a kind of elongated thing. It's a kind of moment by moment thing. And ideally, what I would like, and I guess most people would like, is to have those moments stitched together in longer and longer chains. Or, you know, I'm thinking for people who know crochet, longer and longer crochet chains, you know, that they go for longer. But maybe to think it's a sustainable place or state is kind of is setting oneself up for disappointment, and also maybe not remembering impermanence.
I think that's a really interesting metaphor that you raised. There's another one which I find valuable, which is the pearl necklace. You know, we're attracted to the pearls because that's shiny and that's the objective aspect of the pearl necklace. But the thread that joins them in the gaps between the pearls is also of great interest, and that's closer to the metaphor of pure awareness, you see. And we could even think of the pearls as being made of the thread, emerging from the thread, much as a wave emerges from the ocean. And so this becomes a metaphor for being interested in the gaps between whatever it is that's strung together, whether it be thoughts or feelings or body sensations. The surface mind is always drawn towards the objective aspect of it, but awareness lies in the gap. And there's various ways of recognizing that, which I'll explore more fully. But that's a very interesting reflection, Patricia. Very helpful. Thanks. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to add to that, to your experience? Ian?
Sorry, nothing I can add. I would love to, but at this
Oh,
stage.
sorry, I thought you unmuted yourself and
No, sorry.
you were leaning forward as I was. I
No.
thought you had something to share.
Thank you.
I think last week's talk by Bhante Pandit, and he also mentioned something about there's two paths kind of to the enlightenment. One is the longer path, like Enkong was saying that most of us, like what the Buddha taught, to cultivate all those good quality. Apparently that's a longer path that may or may not lead you to the enlightenment. There's another path is called the mystic path, as a little bit related to what you're saying. It's not always direct. When you say direct, does it mean, normally those people who have that near-death experience, or like somebody just kind of like enlightened, just suddenly? And I know that those type of path is what the mystic path that Bhante Pandit was saying is like kind of like looking inwards, pay the attention inwards, and that is the path. It's kind of like a faster path, may not be direct to going towards that awareness. So for people who have that direct path, direct experience, do you think they will fall back to, like most of us, like back to that, like you have the glimpse of it, but then would it fall back to that, like the illusion again, and trying to get back again? Or when people have that direct path, it's like they are aware all the time.
No, I think it's a bit of, the word direct path is a bit of a trick, actually, to be honest. It's exactly as you say. We have a direct, much what Enkong Tan was saying is the glimpse, which makes us interested. But then there is a process of really resting as presence, and it's a progressive path as well. So it's not just, the direct experience is very valuable because it takes us straight there. But the embedding, to really rest in our Buddha nature is something that requires revisiting over and over again, really. But once we've had a glimpse, it can be very powerful, and that's what I'm hoping that we all share this evening. And it's lovely to hear your different stories, because that helps me to know how to help you to touch that. So Michael, what about your experience? Because if there's anybody who's, when I watch you on, I used to watch you on that mower, and it's like nothing else was happening except you and the mower, and there was something very direct about that image of you doing that. I wonder what it was like for you, as I talk about that relationship to presence, being in the moment. How do you do it, Michael? Yep, gotcha.
Oh, well, I just feel good, but I don't realize how or when it begins. So I just feel like out of this world, in the how do I say? I just feel out of touch. I just in it, and then I'm in a world of my own, as it were. Yeah.
And I love the way that you're sort of reaching to describe it, because if you could describe it accurately and linearly, it wouldn't be it. You expressed it perfectly. And for those of us who are really listening from the place of awareness, and we resonate with you when you say those words, we know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And in fact, it touches us more deeply than a very clever, erudite expression of it, you see. So that's what I was hoping. So that's very helpful, Michael. I'll call on you later to tell us more.
Thank you. Right.
Bill, did you want to share anything? Okay. All right. So we'll press on. So what I'd like to do now is to for us to do a brief meditative exercise, and I find it easier to do it in that sort of state, to induct us into an experience of pure awareness. But before I do that, I'm just going to read you a little poem which helps us to move from the surface towards these depths that I'm alluding to. And it's just called I Am That, which is, whatever it is, it's Buddha nature. So here we are. I am that. Before you can begin to be what you are, you have to come out of what you are not. You are not those worn-out opinions, those turning thoughts, those changing opinions that separate that separate ego. Well then, what are you? You will find that when you've come out of what you are not, that the birds in the trees are singing to you, I am that. The water in the stream is bubbling and babbling to you, I am that. The sun and the moon are shining beacons to you, I am that. And you are in everything in the world, and everything in the world is in you. Before you can begin to be what you are, to be what you already are, you have to come out of what you are not. So that inquiry of who am I or what am I really is a wonderful question to hold. And one of my teachers used to have a necklace with a gold question mark over his heart to keep him questioning. Because if we think we know the answer, we've probably got a little bit further to go, because it's ultimately, we can't really know in the sort of way that we can describe in words, but we can know it intimately in our own being. Knowing and being are not two things. They're actually one thing. You see? So before you can begin to be what you are, you have to come out of what you are not. You are not those worn out opinions. That's a good one, just to recognize, I have an opinion about, I know all about this. You see, that's a good one to recognize. No, that's not it. Those turning thoughts, those changing opinions, that separate ego. So, well then, what are you? You will find that when you've come out of what you are not, that the birds in the trees are singing to you. So when I sound the bell, this is a sort of bird equivalent. I don't know how it's going to sound out there in Zoom land, but what I'm hearing is a beautiful melodious tone, which is arresting. And it's singing to me, it's resonating with something in me, which makes me feel open and alive. It's touching the Buddha mind, it's touching the Buddha nature, which is in the bell and in me. So there's a sort of mutuality which we can experience. And most of us don't put that into words, but we know when we really rest and really take that in, it just lets go of a lot of surface stuff and we go straight there. That's one thing. Birds, nature, walk in nature, that can bring us a glimpse. The water in the stream is bubbling and babbling to you. So that if we just walk, some of us can walk by a stream and, we just take it for granted, it's a stream. But if you just walk in a mindful way and just feel the earth under your feet and recognize that whatever it is going in that stream is also like a stream of consciousness or a stream of awareness. There might be little twigs going by, leaves, and these can be just entering and moving through the flow of the stream of consciousness, the stream of awareness. And we're going by on the bank, walking along. We're also in the stream. It's on the land, but we're also in that same stream. So we're experiencing something of that being spoken to, being inducted into that stream of presence. And everything in the world is you. So there's no separation. This is an important part of it. There's a borderlessness. And this is why I find the breath is so helpful to use, if you like, as a tool for touching this place, because the breath is borderless, isn't it? We breathe in the same breath, the same air as everyone has for the beginning of time. And there's no border. And if we were to look in quantum physics at the border of the body, we recognize there is no border. The patterns that make us up, the patterns of the universe, are not two different things. They're one thing. So this, what we see as a separate self, a separate being here, is actually an illusion. So what I describe as reality or Buddha mind is whatever it is that is hearing these words right now. Whatever it is that is hearing these words right now. So it's here and it's now. And we don't have to pin it down. We don't have to say what it is, but whatever it is, that is it. That's the knowing and the being, the essence of what we could call Buddha nature is right there. So if we really enter fully into the present moment, by definition, we're in presence. It's utterly simple. And that's why most people miss it, because it is so natural, so intimate, so effortless. So if I ask you now, are you aware? What would you say in response to that question? In Kongtan, what would you say?
I would say it touches upon the awareness that you're trying to focus on, but I don't think it's that ultimate enlightenment awareness. I think it's...
So I'm going to take you to the question again. I'm just asking a simple question and I want your simple response. Are you aware? I hope the answer is yes, because I'm going to be worrying about you if it's not. We've lost you, have we?
If we're using the word aware in the general sense, my answer is yes, I'm aware.
Yeah, so let me define awareness again.
Yeah.
It's the reality that is hearing these words right now. It's not the mind, not the surface mind that's conscious in the conventional sense. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the deep knowing that I am aware. In other words, that's something that's the most intimate aspect of our experience, isn't it? And then the next question I'm going to ask you all is this awareness that I'm referring to any different to the awareness that I had as a small child? If I were to ask a child in language that they could understand, are you aware? There'd be a pause. They would go to that experience in their own way and they would answer, yes, I am aware. So the key to recognizing whether we're staying at the surface and answering from that level or really experiencing awareness is the pause and also the sort of groping for words to describe it. If I were to ask you, so what is this awareness? If you give me a textbook answer, that's not it, you see. It's whatever it is, I know it intimately. It's something that we all share. And there's something deeply peaceful, joyful, truthful, compassionate, loving, all of these qualities, if you like. So when we ask you to go to awareness, we immediately go to this place, which is, we use words to describe it, but really it's indescribable. And it's something that we know so intimately, the most intimate aspect of our experience. And yet, the moment we go into words, we're going into some sort of rationalization of what it is, you see. So I'm alluding to and inviting you to go deeper and to allow that pause and to rest as awareness. And as when we're resting as awareness, we're peaceful, we're natural. That smile of the radiance that Thich Nhat Hanh talks about, the inner smile starts to happen effortlessly. There's a place that we all know, and yet most of us, and certainly the cognitive scientists, skip over it completely. They're not interested in, you see, and that's the one thing that I am deeply interested in, is this. Because this to me is what I would define as true Buddha nature. This place from which we experience, or out of which we experience, the depths of our being, and in a way that draws us deeply into life and deeply into the joy of being, into the aliveness of who and what we really are. And it's one of the few, it's a very interesting word, you know, if we use the word awareness, or for me, Buddha nature, it's one of the few words that takes us directly to the experience. If I say to you, are you aware, or are you Buddha nature? There's a pause and you go there. In other words, the experience appears in its referent, which is very different to if I say the word table, the table doesn't suddenly appear. But if I say the word awareness or Buddha nature, there's something in you that knows exactly what I'm referring to, because the experience appears in the referent. And so we start to become interested in exploring this. What is it that it's in the gap between the pearls? What is the nature of that? And we can explore it. We can ask questions about it. We can wonder about it. What is this awareness that's being talked about? And that curiosity can start to take us closer to it. But we don't have to worry too much, because it doesn't matter what happens. Everything is inviting us into the experience of pure presence, everything, especially suffering. So that if we're feeling anxious, depressed, uncomfortable, unhappy, that experience is going to draw us, it's going to, in a sense, push us towards finding some way of relieving that. And the only thing that's going to relieve it is to move closer to what I'm describing. So the suffering is the left hand, if you like, of the right hand. And both of the experiences of the joyful, blissful, peaceful, open-hearted experience of awareness and the suffering, they're just like the left and right hand, if you like, of the one experience, branches of the same tree that really work together to constantly bring us back. Once we've tasted it, once we've had an experience of this reality that I'm talking about, it's not something we can forget. And it becomes something that we become profoundly interested in, because that's where peace, happiness really lies. If we look deeply at the word happiness, it actually etymologically comes from happiness. Whatever is happening, And one of the definitions of enlightenment, which can be alluded to, is whatever happens, if I can accept it without resistance, if I can live in suchness or happiness, then by definition, I'm happy. I'm at ease. I'm utterly, simply being who and what I am. And that's the prerequisite for living a life of peace and joy, which automatically wants to be shared, which allows us to connect with people in a way that makes them feel safe and open and inducts people into it, not by any manipulative attempt, but it's just the nature of this awareness, that it has that capacity to open all these doors that I'm talking about. So that curiosity, and this is what I'm hoping to pick tonight in talking about this, is the first step. What is he talking about? That would be fine. You see, I don't want you to rush to some sort of textbook answer, but to ask yourself in the depths of your own being, what is this presence really? We can see it and we can describe it in some sort of predictable way, but what is it really? And is it something which is just in human beings? Because really, if we look at what we mean by a human being, is this body the human being? Is this mind the human being? What is it that makes the human being? Because all of these things are appearances in awareness. Awareness itself is not the body. The body appears in this awareness. Thinking appears in this awareness. So when we meditate and we rest in this gap between the pearls, in this awareness between prior to objects, we are then unhooking from, if you like, all the things that drag us away from this deep experience of the peace of our own nature. Whether it be the agitation of the mind, whether it be sensations comfortable or uncomfortable in the body, whether it be feelings which are pleasant or unpleasant. So all of these experiences have a tendency to draw us into an addictive sort of clinging to and fascination with whatever it is. And even its extreme form, of course, that leads to addictions of various sorts, whether it be money or cars or people, relationships, whatever. All of these things are really illusions, in a sense, of what the true peace of our own nature is. True relationship is not the surface type of thing that we're used to thinking of. It's really an understanding that we are sharing the one nature. And if we really know that, how could we injure another? How could we not be of service to another? All these wonderful qualities of which Buddhism speaks so beautifully and poetically, all naturally flow from this experience, this utterly simple effortlessness of our own being. So I've given you some food for reflection, and I'm open now to any questions you might have, exploring this more deeply.
David, will I be correct to say the origin of awareness, the deep down? In other words, I can only be aware when I'm aware that I'm aware.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
I don't know how to explain it, but I think that
there's a book one of my teachers wrote called Being Aware of Being Aware, and he goes deeply into just that. And you've said it absolutely spot on.
Yeah, because there have been times when I suddenly realized that I'm thinking of something, and then I'm aware that I'm thinking of that something, and then I feel that I'm really deep into it.
Yeah.
And at that brief moment, it could be just a little while, a brief moment, then I'm kind of out of this world, as it were. I'm all concentrating on that, what I'm thinking of, what I'm aware of.
And it's an effortless awareness, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It just comes on. I didn't try to do it, or I didn't try to think about it. It just comes on. And then the thought comes in that I'm aware, that I've been aware of that something. And that makes me feel good at that moment.
Can you describe in any more words about that feeling, that good feeling? Just what is it like?
Yeah, I just feel calm, if you like, and like, as I keep on saying, out of this world. Like, this world to me, a lot of hassles and things like that, and that becomes peaceful. And that's why I like to go to VJ, for example. Every time I'm there, somehow I feel out, different from what I'm in Wollongong.
It's quite obvious to me, Michael, looking at you when you're up on your tractor and
it's not that Wollongong is noisy or whatever, but I just find that just peaceful.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel light and I feel happy inside, and there's nothing that makes me happy, but I feel happy.
Yeah. And there's no reason for it. It's just happiness itself, without objects, without any
that's right.
anything taking you towards something that you would project that happiness onto. A new tractor. You're happy camper, just being utterly yourself. You're being your true nature there. And you described it beautifully. That's exactly it. It's utterly simple. All of us know what it is, but most of us don't spend a lot of time there. We're always sort of following the next thing, the next object, whatever it might be, that's calling us into responsiveness and reactivity, rather than just allowing that bubbling peace and joy of our true nature to be who and what we really are. And once we've discovered that and rest as that, we can return to it. And the beautiful thing about the breath, if you just, all of you now, just close your eyes for a moment and just take a couple of breaths, being aware of the breathing. And just enter the breath, just be the breath. Every breath slightly different. But notice what happens to thinking when you're totally in the breathing. You may notice that if a thought starts up, there's a little tiny movement of the eyes just before the thought starts. So we can start to become very subtle, aware of these subtle shifts. But mostly when we're in the breath, we're not able to be in the thinking at the same time. This is why breathing is such a valuable tool. Walking meditation, similarly, we can be totally in the walking. And then thinking we don't have to wrestle with. It might come, it might go, but if we're being totally in what we are involved in at that time, this is the direct path. This is meditation in action, you see, and we can be totally engaged in whatever life is calling us to be involved with, but effortlessly, peacefully, happily. So the amness of who I am, the being of who I am, and the isness of the so-called insentient objects, they're not two different things. What underlies it is this essential nature of whatever it is it means to be aware. All of these so-called objects in the world, in the universe, are all appearances in awareness, which is an extraordinary realization. And this is what the Buddha meant by, this is what Thich Nhat Hanh talks about: no coming, no going, no birth, no death. This is a place beyond time and space, which is our true nature, is not bound by those things. They're really products of the surface mind that filters reality through time and space. But our experience of our true nature is outside time and space. That's why I was saying to you, is it any different, your awareness, to the quality of awareness when you were a young child? Will it be any different when you're older? Michael, is your awareness any different to the little boy that was playing on his scooter when he was a little boy?
Yeah, when you come to think of it, when I'm aware of my awareness, I just feel that it's just as you said, in the childhood or when I'm in school years, where there was that happiness, that ecstasy, if you like, on what I'm doing. So that happiness, that is effortless. I did not do anything to make me happy, but I just feel that happiness.
You look at a small child building a tower with a friend, they're totally in the moment. They're just full of just natural joy, and it just flows out of them. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
And
it does.
Yeah. Look at an animal, look at a cat just stretching out, and they know all about this. A lot of people see their animals as their Zen masters for that reason, because they're in it. They don't rationalize their way out of it like we tend to. Yeah. So that's an extraordinary discovery. This is something which is unchangeable, imperturbable, even in the presence of, challenges and world events and all the rest of it that's going on, that we start to sort of get despairing about. All of these are appearances in awareness. And that's something which is sort of threatening to take us into despair and suffering and so on and so forth. But it's just an experience in awareness. Awareness itself is imperturbable, even in the presence of impending death, which is what I described with this Rinpoche, Mingyur Rinpoche. Even in the presence of death of the body, this is still present. The body is an appearance in awareness, in our true nature. So some people say, well, if that's the case, why should I make any effort in, if I'm sort of resting as peace, why should I get out of bed? Well, what do you think the answer to that might be?
I think we'd probably be very bored if we didn't.
Yeah, we'd be withdrawing ourselves from life, and we'd be, and we're constantly, in a sense, we're surprised by every apparent moment, even though at one level we shouldn't be, because if we are everything, there shouldn't be any surprises. But this is one of the extraordinary things about awareness, is that we're constantly and joyously, and sometimes in challenging ways, surprised. We don't know. We have no idea what's happening next. All the fortune tellers would be out of business if they tell the truth. There's no way in the world that anyone can know what the future brings. We can make sort of guesses at it and so forth, but we're constantly surprised. And that's the aliveness, the radical aliveness of being fully aware. It resides here and now and nowhere else.
I think when we come to this world, there must be a purpose, like as you say that, you know, what if people think that don't do anything? I think, I mean, we appear in this form and come to this world, it must be for some reason. So it's probably for more expansion, to gain more experience. I think it's only the moment where you resist that, you know, whatever you are doing, that you don't feel that you want to be here, that is causing that so-called suffering. So you can come to this world and do many other different things, or you don't do, or you do things. I mean, I guess everyone would do something. So if you are like accepting, you know, as you say, that very mindful of you know, doing what you are doing, I guess this is like, I think there's a bliss, that is you know, happiness along the way, not resisting what you know, this moment, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Michael's described it very well, and it's exactly, we use language like that we're here for a purpose and so on and so forth, but really the response to life is here and now. So if we're really aware, if we're really showing up, then what we do next is not something we have to think about. You know, there were a group of Buddhist monks who were meditating in a tall building in New York, and a fire broke out on one of the floors. And the monks, they stopped meditating straight away. They were the first people to respond, and they responded in the moment, not selfishly. They helped other people out. They did a great job of getting everyone out of the building because they weren't hampered by fear. They knew, they responded instantly. It was totally unpredictable. But they weren't there for the one purpose of saving lives. They responded to what the moment, apparent moment, was calling them. And that's what we need to be able to do. We need to be able to listen to what life is calling us. What is it that we not need to do, but we would love to do? And this is the wonderful thing about Buddha nature for me, that it's joyous. It's what we enjoy doing, where there's nothing more enjoyable than really showing up in whatever arena we find ourselves. That's where the happiness lies.
The Buddha did make it explicit as well, isn't it? Because he even told the monks or nuns who might even meditate for years in the caves, to remind them that, well, really, at whatever level of enlightenment you reach, is to be able to come back to the village.
With bliss bestowing hands, he said, right? That's it. So that when you come back to the village, everything you touch, you know, comes to life, because this radiance is not something that you can keep in. It wants to be shared. It wants to be creative. It wants to be productive. And that's you know, in the Oxford pictures, the very last picture, the Buddha is going back to the marketplace with everything he touches, you know, comes to life. It's
You are doing it right now. You are sharing what you've enjoyed, or your awareness, and you're sharing it joyfully with us.
And every one of you is contributing much more than you would perhaps realize, as much as I am, to this experience. It's not me being the teacher. I mean, in a sense, I'm just sharing my experience and you're sharing your experiences. So there's a meeting, there's a true meeting here. And you're all showing up. I feel you're all very present. I can see it in your face, and this is what evokes whatever I say. It makes me a good teacher, is your good listening and sharing. So we're really this really uninhibited entering of whatever this particular moment brings. That's what meditation is. That's what happiness is. And we all know it, just like we know what awareness is. We know what happiness is. That's the thing, when I discovered when I was a little boy that what made me happy was being with people in this way. Just, it's no different to what, we're just hanging out with your mates. And that's what we're doing. And we have a shared interest in truth, which is an incredible, rich thing to be touching together. So what I'd like to do now in the time we have left is to do a little meditation just to deepen these insights and just ground them in a lived experience of touching our true nature. So if you'd like to get into your happy place for meditating, inviting the bell, inviting the deep listening, the awareness of this moment, fully saying yes to whatever shows up. In our thinking, our sensations, feelings, as we just effortlessly rest in our Buddha nature, whatever it is that needs attention, we'll have an opportunity to rise up and be touched. It may be something delightful, it may be something challenging. But whatever it is, it's wanting to be touched without resistance. We say yes to the body, whatever contractions may be there, whatever discomfort. We don't push it away or shut it down. We just allow the spaciousness of awareness to flow into those places. To give them space. To expand. We touch deeply the ease of our being, shared being, Buddha nature. And the teaching is always available. Thich Nhat Hanh puts it this way: the universal Dharma door is already and always open. That's where the real teaching flows from. When we enter the great listening, the word listening means it links to the word to list, to lean towards, to listen with every ounce of our awareness to what is present within and without. So we can say again with Thai, present moment, wonderful moment. And it requires no effortlessness. And the understanding that this body with its apparent borders is really an illusion, that this body, the body of the earth, universe, is one experience. So when we say we're going to look after the earth, we're going to save the planet, it's not out there. It's loving care of who and what we are. Temple of the body, temple of the earth, one temple. So we become more and more interested in the gaps between thoughts, between feelings, between any objects of awareness. It's resting in and as the gap in which all these experiences arise effortlessly, beautifully, without any manipulation. Gate, gate, paragate, parasangate, bodhi svaha. Going, going, gone, gone beyond the farther shore. Enlightenment, so be it. So the questions are more valuable than the answers. Is it possible to touch Buddha nature here and now? Just posing that question invites us to enter deeper and deeper into imperturbable nature, Buddha nature, awareness, here and now. And we can ask directly questions about awareness, about Buddha nature. And just pause and wait for the answer to reveal itself. For example, we could pose the question, is awareness, is Buddha nature limited in any way? Is it limited in time and space? Or is it borderless and boundless? Am I aware of being aware right now? And how would I know? And was the experience of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree so ardently searching for enlightenment? Was his quest any different in essence from our quest here now? Could we be sitting under the same tree? So as we gently rise from the meditation, I invite the bell. The lotus to the Buddha.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Meredith, and everyone. My joy to be here with you all. Thank you.